The dream space. To solve the Guardian's riddle, we have to be able to answer two questions. Why is anything possible in lucid dreaming, and why do dreams seem so real? In both lucid and non-lucid dreams, the images can be incredibly vivid, often sharper and more colorful than real life. One hypothesis suggests that the brain creates these images and perceives them during sleep as if they were real, similar to hypnosis. However, this theory remains unproven. The transurfing model of dreams is as follows. Rather than independently creating these images, the subconscious directly connects to the alt space and the information it contains. If you look carefully at an object and then close your eyes and try to imagine it, you will not be able to see it as clearly, even if you had excellent powers of visualization. Even if the brain stores the photograph as a group of neurons in a certain condition, no quantity of neurons would be enough to reproduce all the photographs of all our memories. The image your brain commits to memory is more like a low-resolution photograph. If memories and dreams were stored in neurons, imagine how many would be needed to hold all that data. In the transurfing model, neurons don't store information like computer memory. Instead, they act as pointers to where information is located in the alt space. While the brain can retain some data, it isn't capable of holding everything we try to remember or creating the vivid, perfect virtual reality we see in dreams. Even in waking state, it's hard to visualize images as clearly as in dreams, so it's unlikely the brain suddenly develops this ability during sleep. The heart is capable of randomly attuning to sectors of the alt space that have not been transformed into physical reality. Dreams are not illusions in the usual sense of the word. They are not simply imagined. The mind genuinely sees them. We know that people see pictures in their dreams that do not seem to be of this world. For example, one might see an architectural construction in minute detail that in principle could not exist anywhere on the planet. If a dream is simply the brain's memory of reality, where then are images sourced that we can never have observed with the waking eye? In the transurfing model, sectors of the alt space contain different scripts and scenery, including people and surroundings. When you see someone you know in a dream, they may look or act slightly differently. This reflects the diversity of the alt space. In waking life, we see the realized version of reality, while in dreams, we glimpse at unrealized possibilities. If you see your reflection in a dream, it might shock you because it won't look like your waking reflection. This is because your appearance in the dream aligns with the sector of the alt space you're accessing. The further the dream sector is from your current reality, the more your appearance and surroundings may change. Familiar places might appear altered, and you might encounter entirely new environments with people and places that exist only virtually. This could explain why reflections in dream mirrors often appear unfamiliar or strange. It might seem weird to say that every night we move into the alt space and live a virtual life there. Everything about the dream space generates more questions than answers. One thing, however, is certain. Dreams are not an illusion. The alt space may not have tangible physical foundation, but it is real nonetheless. What can be said about interpreting the meaning of dreams? Well, dreams hold a lot of personal psychological meaning, and much value can be derived from their interpretation. But from a transurfing perspective and predicting the future, the alt space is infinitely diverse, making any singular interpretation of the future uncertain. And so, for the purpose of this training and program, we're not going to go there. That said, this is a fascinating subject for myself, and there is sincere intention to create something of significant value surrounding this topic, and we'll dive deeper into this more in our group discussions. In dreams, an interesting question arises. Who chooses the scripts for the events we witness if they aren't just products of our imagination? Every sector in the alt space contains a script. When the mind is deeply asleep and we don't remember our dreams, it's unclear how events unfold. In waking life, the mind actively controls events through thoughts and actions. In dreams, however, the mind becomes a passive observer, simply accepting the unfolding scenarios. Events in dreams unfold based on the script of the sector the soul enters. These events align with the dreamer's expectations, anxieties, and opinions from waking life. In dreams, personal fears and thoughts manifest instantly. For example, if the dreamer feels fear, a threatening scenario will materialize. Even a fleeting thought of danger, like being pursued, can instantly summon a monster to chase them. The soul selects a script aligned with the dreamer's thoughts and expectations, moving through the alt space as their thoughts shift. The dream progresses like a film roll driven by the dreamer's ongoing thoughts. If the mind could completely stop thinking, the dream would freeze, but thoughts never fully stop, they constantly chatter in the background. In dreams, events often defy our usual perceptions because the mind's control is weakened. Everything can seem upside down, and the laws of physics may not apply. In lucid dreams, even more incredible things can happen since the rational mind, knowing it's just a dream, is open to accepting the unusual. Now you can see why anything can happen in a dream. Dreaming is the soul's travel through the alt space where all types of scripts exist. In lucid dreaming, it is not so much that the script changes of its own accord, so much as it's selected via intention. As soon as the intention emerges in your thoughts to swap roles with your pursuer, the soul reattunes itself to a sector with the opposite script. This is the mechanism for lucid dreaming. Intention selects the script. If the mind realizes that it can control the script, it forms a desire, for example, the desire to fly. This thought flashes through consciousness and is transformed by the soul into an intention. Intention is the force that carries the dreamer into the sector with a corresponding script. In dreams, the soul moves freely through the alt space and scripts are realized instantly because there's no physical matter to slow things down. In waking life, events follow the same principles as dreams but develop more slowly due to the density of physical reality. Thoughts shape our physical reality, but the process is delayed by the heaviness of material transformation. In dreams, where no such density exists, shifts between sectors happen instantly. This highlights how thought energy, vibrating at the frequency of a specific lifeline, eventually manifests in physical reality, though at a much slower pace. Now you can see why we brought up the theme of dreams. In order to create the destiny you desire, it is important to be clear about how thought carries us from one sector to another and why not all our desires find expressions on the material level. Even though lucid dreaming is like a training ground, you do not have to practice lucid dreaming in order to attain your purpose. Our goal is simply to learn the knack of choosing the script we want in waking. It is much more important to learn to wake up in real life than in a virtual one.